Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea from Game Informer, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. There ain't much going on this week, except we may have learned the first details of the new Nintendo console. Earlier this week, a big report came out from Video Games Chronicle that claimed to know the first details of the next Nintendo console, and that's exactly what we are going to dive into right now. I am joined by Game Informer's own Marcus Stewart and Kyle Hilliard. Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
And how about you, Kyle?
I'm also doing great.
One of these days, one of you is going to say that you're doing poorly, and then we're going to have to just basically pivot and talk about something entirely different, because then we're going to be kind of, showing our concern for you. But I'm glad that you're both great. I'm doing great as well. But before we dive into kind of the main talker for this episode, I wanted to go over this report that came out and kind of discuss what it does and does not tell us. So this article is written by Andy Robinson, who is the editor-in-chief over at Video Games Chronicle. Yeah, I'm getting that right. And also a former writer for ukulele developer Playtonic, which I did not realize that he had made that transition from writer on ukulele on both games to being the editor-in-chief over at VGC. So
yeah, me neither.
Yeah, so the report says, I mean, I guess that probably explains why he might have some sources that
And to be clear, they're not two different Andy Robinsons, right? These are definitely the same Andy Robinson.
I went to the Twitter account of the editor-in-chief of Video Games Chronicle, and it said the Twitter handle is Andy Playtonic. Okay. And the bio says former writer at Playtonic.
Okay, cool. That is interesting. I did not know that.
So the report says, quote, according to multiple people with knowledge of Nintendo's next-gen console plans, the company is likely to release new hardware during the second half of 2024 to ensure that it has ample stock available on day one and to avoid the kinds of shortages seen with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S. So the report goes on to say that kind of a lot of the specific details about the console are being closely guarded, and not even the outlet sources knew too many details beyond that. But we did get some additional stuff outside of just the kind of release window that goes over. Two sources told the outlet that it would have an LCD screen instead of an OLED screen to bring down the cost, which is interesting because we did get the Switch OLED that came out, I guess that was October 2021. And then the sources also said that the next Nintendo console will keep a physical cartridge slot, so it will support both physical and digital, and would still have the ability to be played in some kind of portable mode. So, Kyle, let's go to you first. What was your reaction when you read this report?
Skepticism in general for all these reports, right? Like even firm reports are susceptible to Nintendo just changing its mind. Right, even if they've committed to something and they and people have news stories and stuff, like Nintendo could just be like, well, actually, no, we're doing something different. So I always go into those news stories with a healthy dose of skepticism. But that being said, I mean, like, the timeline feels right, and this isn't like the. Are we thinking this is like the long rumored better Switch? Or is this the new Nintendo platform? Like, what's sort of the tone here? We think.
So I've also poked around a little bit, and I also have kind of I've gotten the release window. That's kind of in line with what I've heard as well. And also, I think it is kind of like the next generation.
Okay, so it's maybe not even Switch, right? Because like Nintendo historically has never sort of sequelized its consoles, unless you can count Wii U, and that was probably like just went really poorly for them. So
yeah, well, I mean, it did the opposite of what NES to SNES did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would personally love it if it was like Super Switch. Like, I think that would be kind of a cool way to not have a terrible name like Wii U.
Right. Maybe Switch U. Maybe this time it'll work.
Maybe. I mean, they could always do new Switch, like they did with 3DS, which is they seem to like doing that. But
I would hate that.
It's so funny because like Switch is like maybe their most successful console. I mean,
it is by a long shot. It beat the Wii.
But you could also say, like, I mean, truly, like the Nintendo, maybe it didn't sell as many, pieces of hardware, but like in terms of its radical impact on the world,
Well,
like
yeah.
maybe the Nintendo original Nintendo is more successful, but like I don't, it wouldn't be called Switch 2, right? Like that's just too simple and obvious for Nintendo. They don't like doing that, right? It would probably have a
Yeah.
whole new name, I would think.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about like impact, then yeah, the NES is probably the most important console ever released, period. But if
Right.
you're talking about pure success, which I think, when businesses look at like how successful something is, they look primarily at sales numbers. The Switch is far and away their most successful console. Obviously, the DS is the highest selling system they've ever put out, but as far as consoles are concerned, the Switch is.
Right.
I don't think that it would be called Switch 2. I think that we would probably get some. I mean, maybe they play off the name Switch, but then maybe Nintendo overreacts to the way playing off of the name Wii kind of backfired and decide, oh, maybe we should just get something completely far away from that. But who knows? Because their naming convention has always been the least consistent out of all the platform holders, right?
Yeah.
Like Xbox has always had Xbox in the title. PlayStation's just kind of gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I don't know what the name could possibly be. But Marcus, let me throw this to you. How plausible does this report sound to you?
Uh, uh, like again, I'm with Kyle where you kind of take everything with a grain of salt. But assuming that at least most of this is accurate, that kind of lines up with what I've always thought I guess whatever the next Nintendo thing is coming out of. Like, yeah, I could see like holiday 2024 maybe being like the latest that a new Switch would come out. I honestly, if I was thinking maybe spring of 2024, like if they were to announce it, they would announce it kind of like now ish, basically. But then Zelda came out, and I was like, okay, I don't think they're going to announce a new console when the biggest game of their current platform just dropped. And I only said it just because like the last few Nintendo games, or at least for the Switch, that was like a spring release. But yeah, like nothing about the report seemed like outrageous. Like how what? I was like, yeah, I could see all that. Maybe the OLED thing was a little surprising, just because I kind of assumed maybe OLED would just be the default screen going forward because of the Switch OLED. So, but then again, that's like the Nintendo thing is trying to keep costs down. Going, so I
Yeah.
guess it was the I'm not a big screen guy, but like was the original Switch screen an LCD or was that something else?
Oh boy, I don't remember. I know that the new.
Pretty
I
sure it
mean, obviously
was.
the new one is the OLED, but like that's kind of the premium model of the Switch. Let's look that up right now.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
only
mean,
asked was like, is there any change there whatsoever?
I honestly like the Switch OLED. Like, it is really like ultimately, especially after spending time with it, like an underwhelming upgrade. Frankly, like even at the time, I was like, really, that's all we're getting. I mean, the colors look a little better, but like most people play it primarily on their TV anyway. And if I'm playing handheld, I'm usually playing on my Switch Lite. I prefer the sort of the feeling of that in my hands over the OLED. So like I actually don't really mind that. I'll take an LCD if it like means that it runs faster and loads better and all those fun things that
Oh.
we've wanted from Switch for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, it's funny. Like, I'm the opposite, Kyle, where I'm pretty 50-50 with my Switch. Like, I play a lot on handheld mode.
Oh,
So
I
I've
do. I probably play like 70-30 but like primarily handheld, honestly. But
oh really?
yeah, but
Oh,
I will always go Switch Lite. I just would rather play on
okay.
my Switch Lite. Like what I've been doing is I've been playing Oracle of Seasons on my Switch Lite, and then on the few occasions I play on my TV, I just put my save in the cloud, and then I put it on a different Switch. It's an extra step that makes up my life complicated, but it's how I want to live it. You guys don't judge me.
Yeah, I was just report like because I was actually looking at maybe buying a Switch OLED finally, but
Mm.
like the fear of like this thing's been out long enough to where like they're gonna announce a new Switch like
Right?
any day
Yeah.
now, right? Or relatively soon. Should I wait? And then in the back of my mind is like maybe the Switch 2 will just have an OLED from the start. So I can just wait for that. Because it's like I play handheld enough and I don't have a Switch Lite and I'm just not really interested in getting one. So it'd be like, yeah, that would be a worthwhile upgrade, right? Because I'll experience it enough. But like honestly, the thing that holds me back is like I feel like a new Switch is kind of around the corner, and this,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean that's been my kind of mindset since this podcast even started, and like this podcast started right around when the Switch OLED came out, and I was just like, I want one of these, but I don't want to buy one and then a year later have a Switch get in, like a new Nintendo console get announced and be like, oh well, there's $350 or whatever it is that I'll never get back.
Right.
So there is a lot that we don't know coming out of this report, and I kind of want to transition to the part where we try to fill in these blanks of this report with our own speculation and our own kind of wish lists here. And I want to chat a little bit about what we would want from a new Switch or whatever Nintendo kind of ends up calling its next system. And I put out a call on Twitter to ask people what they want from the next console. And I want to kind of frame our discussion through those responses. But first, I want to get each of your number one thing that the next Nintendo console must do. So, Marcus, let's have you go first.
it must have, assuming it's portable, it needs to have a much better battery life.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Interesting. Okay.
And Kyle, what about you?
Oh, I just I'm kind of surprised at battery life being the sort of number one. I mean, my thing is like maybe I don't know the best way to approach this, but I want it to run games better, but it doesn't need to be a Steam Deck, right? But I think maybe the sort of simple call out thing that I want is an SSD to help with loading, because that's like the big thing that I run into now when I switch between like a console and my Steam Deck and go to Switch is like, oh God, right, loading. I forgot about this.
Yeah, I mean that is a what is it? An SSD RVE or RME? What's the one that that works on the PS5 that's like super slim? I have one sitting right on my desk here. Why don't I just
I mean,
Flash
like
processor?
just solid state drive, just some kind of, I don't want a sort of a disk spinning in there to
like
load data.
NVM,
Yeah.
NVMe. I'm literally holding it in the palm of my hand. It is much smaller than my phone. It is it's smaller than a business card. So that would fit in a portable console. And this is a terabyte that I'm holding in my hand right now.
Yeah.
And the reason it's not in anything is because I got it for my PS5 and then it was incompatible with my PS5. So I was going to put it in my PC and I don't know where to put it in my PC. So it's just been sitting on my desk, literally gathering dust and probably breaking in the process.
I mean, I'll take it off your hands if you don't want it. I mean, but yeah, I also want to make sure that thing stays light, because like that's the thing that bums me out about Steam Deck. As much as I love my Steam Deck and play it a lot, it's a bit too heavy. I don't want the next portable Nintendo console, whatever it's called, to get too much heavier.
Yeah, I mean it does have a perfect weight to it right now, I feel like. But I don't know, like SSDs have come a long way in the last 7 years. I think that there is a way they could do that. That is a good call out though, because you're right. Like when I'm playing a game on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X and it just loads almost instantly. Like I'm loading giant open worlds in like less than 10 seconds. And that's just amazing. And then you go and play something like Tears of the Kingdom, which, I don't have to remind the listeners of the show that we love that game, but the loading can be a little rough on that game sometimes when you're used to the other current gen consoles. So I want to dive into some of these responses here. I'm actually surprised at the number of games industry folks that chimed in. And I didn't even I just put out a call like whenever we reported on the report. I just asked like, what's the number one thing that the next Nintendo console needs to do?
IG Enuma hit you up.
I need this game to run Zelda better, or this system to run Zelda better. No, he did not hit me up, unfortunately. But my buddy Max Parker, former games journalist, but now he is at Rocket League developer Psyonix. He chimed in wanting 4K visuals.
Reverse Andy Robbins.
The reverse Andy Robinson. That's what it's called, actually. And his quote is, my old eyes can't take 720p anymore. So, yeah, I mean, 4K. How do we feel about that?
I'm fine. I can deal with it. I've never really been a huge like resolution like stan, I guess. Like maybe because it took so long in my life to even like understand what that meant or notice the difference. So like, oh, I guess that looks clearer. So like I like when I play my Switch now because that's 720. I really don't care or mind it, but I'd be happy if you bump that up to like, I mean, even just if you can just get up to like 1440, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
But if we want to go all the way to 4K, sure, I'll take
Well,
it.
that's the thing, though, is like there was a lot of discourse happening in my Twitter mentions over many people saying, "Oh, I want 4K," and a lot of people kind of, I'm assuming they primarily play their Switch in handheld mode. They were arguing, "Well, that's unnecessary in a handheld system," and then they're like, the other people are like, "Yeah, I'm talking about docked. I want it 4K. I want it
Sure.
up on my TV on
Yeah,
4K." But like,
absolutely.
if it was 1080 in handheld, that would also be fine. So
Yeah.
I think that it would be nice to have a 4K mode when it's in docked mode or whatever it ends up being called when it's playing on your TV.
By
So
the way, to follow up on our previous topic, the original Switch that was LCD. By the way,
yes,
as we're talking about resolutions and
I
stuff.
did look that up and I forgot to circle back.
Right.
So good job hosting this podcast,
Oh, you're
Kyle.
welcome. Yeah,
Next,
that 4K question, it's all for me at the expense of like, is it going to make the game run slower? Because like I will always default to performance mode personally. I want performance above everything else. So I like 4K. 4K, I wouldn't say no to it, but I wouldn't want it at the expense of like, lower frame rate, etc.
Yeah, especially because a lot of Nintendo games like they don't really need 4K. Like they're not going for like hyper realism with their
No,
stuff.
yeah.
Like they're kind of like more whimsical, cartoony art direction has always looked great, even like the Wii, like pre HD and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like I don't need to see every hair on Mario's head to have fun with it.
I do. And
Okay.
I do remember going to Best Buy back when the Wii U was not out yet and like watching something Mario in HD and just being like, this is incredible. Like this, there was
Even
just
that was
something
probably
special about it.
1080p. That still holds up. I feel like, but
Yeah, but also that was over 10 years ago now.
True.
I feel like we, just like the loading times, we've been spoiled by higher resolution on other platforms.
Yeah, you still want that Zelda Wii U demo where he's fighting the big spider?
Yeah, I mean, we finally got something similar to the Zelda GameCube demo that we got at Space World that one year. So why not get the Zelda Wii U demo where he was fighting the Goma? Next up, Scott Fontana, who has actually appeared on All Things Nintendo in the past, and he also writes for the New York Post. That's a secondary byline there. He says, capacity and power to play high-end cross-platform, I'm assuming he means multi-platform, titles without the need for cloud streaming. And I think that's a big one, right? Because
yeah,
I have railed on Nintendo and like third-party developers for bringing games like Kingdom Hearts, a PS2 title, to Switch and have it be cloud streaming. I get it when like a game like Control, which is obviously way too much for the Switch to handle, when that gets put on the Switch, it's a cloud streaming game. But I would like a system that doesn't necessitate that, right?
Yeah, is that a? It's weird because that's been so all over the place. Or I assume it's just like a studio choice because like you got something like The Witcher, which is massive, but that's like a local like game you play on a cartridge. But then you're like, I have to stream Kingdom Hearts like 2? Like, really? Like,
Oh God,
you couldn't get a collection of PS2 games on a cartridge?
that Kingdom Hearts thing is ridiculous. I have a family like Disney trip coming up, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun. It's like, what if I played Kingdom Hearts like on the plane or whatever, right? Just to sort of get in the headspace. I was like, I don't think I have a way to do it because of this stupid streaming version.
It's so dumb. So dumb.
I mean, I guess if you use your phone as a hotspot to stream a video game,
like, that's not gonna work. I would be curious like how those streaming versions perform commercially, because like I remember they do offer a demo, right? Like Control. I think I loaded up the demo on my Switch just to see how it worked. And it was fine, right? It was like south of fine, I guess you could say. But I it's like it's an instant like, oh, I'm not gonna play it on Switch then if it's announced as a streaming version, right? Like
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
like no, I'm not gonna. Why would I do that?
I mean, I even told Ed Boon that at Summer Game Fest on in the interview that people heard on this podcast. I was like, "Hey, is this going to be a local Mortal Kombat 1 or is it going to be a streaming thing?" Because I was like, if it comes out, if you're like, oh, it's going to be like a cloud streaming, I'm just going to play it on PlayStation, even though I probably will anyway. But
Did you like threaten him with that?
I mean, he was like, no, it's local. It's local, just the
Okay,
same
it's
as
like,
MK11 was.
That's good.
okay, it's like, just so you know, if you stream this, I'm not touching it.
But the crazy thing is that Mortal Kombat 1 is only coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X. It's not coming to PS4 and Xbox One. So it's like those are more powerful than the Switch.
Yeah, weird.
It's just very strange. Next up, Matt Piscatella, who is the guy behind the NPD reports. He's a games analyst, and the sales numbers that we get are often based off of his reports. He simply says, "Play Call of Duty," which I think is maybe a joke at the Xbox Activision Blizzard merger, like that being the big thing that we had been saying is like, I don't think that the Switch can handle Call of Duty as it exists right now. So I think that was kind of a little joke at that. But then we have one from Tom Happ, who you may know as the creator of Axiom Verge.
Yeah.
He responded with perhaps the most popular answer: backwards compatible with previous generation.
Yes.
That's huge.
I feel like that will be the case. Like, I think this is going to be like at least a Wii U situation where that was backwards compatible with the Wii, because the Wii just sold so much that it was like, you kind of, it just seems like it makes sense. I think that will happen. Whether they, stick with cartridges for the next Switch or just have a way where you can just, I don't know, if you own the digital copy, you could just play it on your new Switch 2, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But I actually kind of, my gut tells me that we're going to get that.
I think so too. And
Yeah.
and according to that report, they did say that Nintendo was hoping and figuring out ways to convert as many Switch owners as possible. So they said while nobody knew if it was going to be backwards compatible, Nintendo was looking into ways to convert as many Switch users as possible.
Yeah,
So hopefully that is an indication that they are going to have backwards compatibility. I think it would be a huge turnoff if they did not. Like I would see that and be like, all right, well, I'm going to hold on to my Switch for a little bit longer then. Although I say that now, and then when it's like time to pre-order, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting two.
Yeah, they'll be going door to door asking if we've accepted backwards compatibility in our hearts.
I mean, the best selling, truly, I mean, unless they have some big exclusive right on day one for let's just call it Switch 2, right? Even though I'm doubt that's what it'll actually be called, just for the sake of this conversation. Like, they're not going to have a new Mario, right? Because Mario Wonder is coming out. They're not going to have a new
maybe.
maybe, I guess.
Could
like,
be a 3D
maybe a
one.
3D Mario, but I'm doubtful. But they probably they won't have a new Zelda by then. But so the best selling point they can have for Switch 2 is like you can play Tears of Kingdom on this and it's going to load twice as fast. Because like that's how they sold new 3DS. Was like if you put Smash Brothers on here, the loading is like way faster, and they even put videos online showing how much faster Smash Brothers loaded on 3DS versus new 3DS. I mean, like if they have a comparison video that just shows Link like instantly fast traveling around Hyrule, like yeah, like I'll buy Switch 2 for that.
Yeah. Or what would be better if like whenever you use Ascend when he's traveling through like a platform that's like maybe 2 feet thick, you don't have to watch that cutscene that makes it look like he's swimming like a mile.
But I will say that's not really loading though, right? Like that's
I assumed it was. Maybe it's not, but it was. I don't know. It's always been weird to me. But like, how come like on this plank he's like instant, but this thing is like only a little bit thicker, but it has to load.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but my assumption it wasn't loading. It was like trying to show you the real time swimming, and then they cut to that that cut scene because Nintendo doesn't want to show any clipping or anything. So it's like rather than like the occasional like Link awkwardly shuffles through some weird thing and you see his legs sticking out the side, they're like, what, we're just gonna no one gets to see it, we're just gonna have a cutscene play.
Well, that segues perfectly into Jacob Nahin's who's a PR guy who used to work for Sega Atlas, now he does for several games. He says 60 frames per second Tears of the Kingdom is all he really needs. And I think that kind of that's perfect for what
Yeah,
our
that would
discussion is right
be.
Yeah.
now.
That's what I
I mean,
want. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. I mean, 60 FPS, like anything, like if they were bold enough to make the Xbox promise of like, yeah, all our first party stuff, 60 FPS, baby. That'd be neat. I wouldn't say no to it.
Has Nintendo ever said the phrase 60 FPS? Have they ever said FPS?
I don't. Oh, oh,
Maybe they've said like it'll run at stable 30 frames per second, but I don't think they've ever said 60 frames per second.
Because
Yeah.
I don't think
I
they
think
like
they've only
using
ever
those kinds of terms, really.
yeah. I think they've only ever said it in the mindset of please don't ask us about FPS ever.
Right. I mean, but the thing is like they internally, there's no doubt in my mind, they take that very seriously because they prioritize performance over everything, right? Like that, like you ask them like why their games are so small, and they'll say like, well, it's because it like helps with loading and makes the gameplay experience more fun if there's less data you have to pull from, right? So like they
Right.
take that stuff very seriously, but they just don't use it as marketing bullets, you know? Like I think Link Between Worlds runs at 60 on 3DS, and it's like it feels so good because of that. And I think they highlighted that, like, oh, look how good it feels. It's so smooth, but it's like they would never use numbers and acronyms. Right?
Oh
Yeah.
man, can you imagine Mario Kart 8 60 FPS?
Ooh.
That'd be great.
Well, wait, are we sure it doesn't run it already?
It
at
might.
60 FPS? I don't
Does
even
it?
know.
I
It
don't
might.
know. I don't know which games like do it. Like
I'm very
like
bad at
Nintendo.
perceiving it, but like when it comes
Yeah.
when I do notice it, I'm like, "Ooh, this is really smooth."
Yeah, I just
Um,
assume like Mario Kart. Yeah, maybe you're right. It just looks good regardless, but maybe it is because I mean the Switch is capable of running 60 FPS for some stuff.
According
but-
to some articles that I just Googled and maybe are wrong, it says Mario Kart 8 Deluxe runs consistently at 60 frames per second and 1080p when docked. So
Yeah,
there
I
you
mean,
go.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Mario Kart's like one of the smoothest. That's why that game's so great.
maybe that's
you know?
why. Yeah, maybe I just didn't realize it because
Yeah.
I'm kind of like Brian, where like unless you do like you turn the performance mode on and off back to back, and you're like, oh, okay, I see it now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
yeah.
think Tears of the Kingdom runs at 30 and Breath of the Wild as well. And that's kind of them what's the word I'm looking for? Like accepting that limitation to have the large world. Like I think Odyssey runs at 60 and they would not take anything less for Mario because Mario has to feel great. And so I think Mario has always run at 60 even,
Yeah.
you know, forever.
even on the NES, yeah.
I mean, yeah, honestly, yeah.
So
Next up, Dave Oshry from New Blood has some pretty good suggestions. He said 1080 handheld, 4K docked, better battery life, and F-Zero.
And F-Zero.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
mean,
comes with
I'm on board.
F-Zero in the box, like pre-installed.
If F-Zero runs at 60 frames per second, I'm in.
It would have to, right? Like
No,
you don't
I-
release an F-Zero that does not.
There's
that would
no way
be-
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, F-Zero runs at 60 on N64, like truly.
Huh.
Because that's why that game feels so good. Unless I know it did, because this is random, but I played it as recently as on Wii U. Oh, and it came to Switch too. Isn't it on Switch now?
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
Smash
is it?
Brothers. The original Smash Brothers was 60. Like they've been prioritizing that well before anybody else. They just don't. They don't. It's not a marketing bullet for them. You know, they would rather you say, "Oh, this feels great," rather than be like, "Oh, what's the FPS?"
All right, we have one from Twitch streamer Big Cheese chiming in with the 4K 60 FPS backward compatibility that most people said, but also he wants voice chat through the console, some way to convert friend codes to easy to remember usernames, and a docked wired connection, like similar to what was added to the Switch OLED.
Oh, is
Okay, right.
Do they still use that weird phone app workaround?
Yeah.
I completely forgot that was a thing. 'Cause I'm not a big voice chat person, anyways. So I just realized, like, yeah, that's still around, right? Like, that's still the only way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, most people just jump on Discord or call each other at this point. I think.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think that's
anybody
why
really uses
too.
that app. But yeah, that would be something like even if they just had a Discord app on the next Nintendo console,
Yeah.
and that's how you run voice chat through it. And I also saw a lot of people suggesting that like having the headphone jack in the controller itself, so that way you can just do kind of voice chat that way, or have headphones that can bring the audio so you can do that way. Because right now, I think if you are playing the Switch docked and you want to use headphones, I rarely use headphones unless I'm traveling with my Switch, I think you need to run it directly into the console. I don't think there's any way to plug it into the actual controller. So it's like if
No.
you're sitting on the other side of your Switch, like other side of the room as your Switch, and you're playing in docked, there's really no great way to use headphones natively without like kind of. I know there are like Bluetooth adapters and everything you can get, but yeah, that's
Well,
a problem.
The system did get a software update a year or two ago to let you use Bluetooth headphones.
Okay.
So
Oh, right.
I'll use my AirPods occasionally.
Again,
Or it wasn't so much an update, wasn't it? Like, it was always there. They just
Yeah.
sort of flipped the switch and
No,
said you can use it now.
Yeah, it was super stupid. Like they were clearly like withholding it, and then there was a console update that was like, okay, yeah, we'll let you use Bluetooth. That's always been there.
I do
It's like,
recall
gee,
that
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's absurd that the Pro controller doesn't have a headphone jack. What are they doing?
Yeah. I was gonna just to piggyback off the Discord thing, for my own personal request, it'd be nice if there were just more apps in general.
Yeah, that's a weird thing, right?
Because there's still no Netflix, right? I think it's still like there's like maybe 5 entertainment apps. Like one of them's Crunchyroll.
It's like Hulu, Crunchyroll, Twitch, and YouTube, I think, are like the ones that there are on Switch. Like there's no Netflix, no Disney Plus, I don't think.
Yeah, that's so weird to me. It's like, because I was like, I don't understand why, especially for a portable console. It'd be, nice to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna watch Disney Plus on the go on like a bigger screen than my phone.
Yeah, I mean that would be awesome. That's why I bring my iPad. I wouldn't have to bring my iPad if the Switch did that all.
Apple TV, and then if you get Apple TV, then they can put Ted Lasso and Smash Brothers.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right,
writer from After Party in there. That's a joke for me.
Very good.
Very good. Shout out to the After Party, a great Apple Plus show that not enough people are watching. It's the best thing on the platform.
Is it?
I think so. I like it more than Ted Lasso.
There's Severance. There's Ted Lasso. What's the other one?
I do like
Shrinking. I've been liking
Shrinking. I've heard really great things about. The only ones that I've watched have been Ted Lasso and Severance.
Please watch.
People like that new show, right?
Both of you guys, just watch the After Party. Watch both. The second season's airing now. The first season's great. It's the best.
Okay.
All right. So we have a controversial one next. This is from George Yang, who's a writer. He says, "An achievement system, please, Nintendo, please." How we feel about that one?
I'm not I'm not like an achievement hunter. Like I almost never go out of my way to get an achievement, but I wouldn't mind it. I feel like Nintendo games, especially something like Mario or Zelda, like I can't help but think there would be some satisfaction of getting an achievement because I don't know, killed X amount of Goombas in a row without dying or did some like wild feat. I would only want to see it because I feel like Nintendo would get a lot more creative with them. Like they wouldn't just copy what the other two platforms do. Like the achievements would almost be a little bit more like esoteric or like you got to do some really creative stuff to get their achievements. I just kind of want to see what they would do with it. So why not?
I'm always sitting there and I'm saying like, I don't care about trophies. I don't care about achievements, but I'm currently playing a review game. It's a multi-platform review game. And I specifically asked for a Switch code. And I've been playing it, and I beat a very difficult boss in this game last night. And I couldn't help but be like, oh man, I bet that would have given me an achievement if I was playing this on Xbox or PlayStation. And right. I don't know why. Like maybe I've just been conditioned over the years to be like, yeah, when you do something cool, that little sound plays where you get an achievement or a trophy. And it just feels weird sometimes when it's like, I could have gotten an achievement for that, darn it. And it just
I mean, have you guys ever turned down a Switch version of a third-party game because you won't get achievements for it?
No. I mean,
is that a factor at all?
The only time that I will like go with a different console if I know it's going to run better on that console, right? Like if I'm thinking about like, all right, what do I want to buy Sonic Frontiers on? I'm not going to get it on Switch unless I want a portable version. Like I do have it on both Switch and PlayStation, but that's because the review copy was on PlayStation. But that's the one. If I do ever want to go back and play more Sonic Frontiers, I'm playing it on PlayStation. But if I happen to be on the road and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to play some Sonic Frontiers, then the Switch version is awesome for that. But yeah, it's usually just because it runs better. That's why I go with the other platforms.
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to
Yeah.
think because like the best example of this is like an indie game, right? That's going to be totally fine on Switch. Like a
Most of the
Metroid
time.
pixel platformer. I will always just go Switch. But I do love achievements and trophies. Like I don't like hunt for them, but I love when they're there. As like if it's a game I love having sort of an excuse to keep playing it. For achievements and stuff like that. So I would love a Switch comparable version, but I think Miyamoto has been asked about it in the past and was pretty adamantly like, no, I don't think we ever want to do that. So
They would do something like a Tears of the Kingdom achievement would be like, oh, when the moon is like red and everybody comes back, if you take your Switch out during an actual full moon and hold it up to the moonlight, you'll get this weird achievement.
hell
Like it's going
yeah,
to be like weird puzzly stuff that's like, we want you to be more engaged with the game, not just kill 5 things and here's a trophy. We want you to do some wild stuff.
I would love that. Yeah, we'll do it.
All right, we have one from former Game Informer editor and current head of PR at My Dearest, Imran Khan.
Hey.
He says a reactive eShop. And I actually noticed a lot of people complaining about the current eShop, more so than I thought, like had problems with the eShop. And yeah, I mean, the eShop is not great. Like I try to load it up on the Switch itself and it takes forever to load like a lot of stuff. I usually end up just, if I want to buy a game, I'll search for it on like the web version of the eShop. But a lot of people were chiming in hoping that the next generation of the eShop will be better. And I hope they keep the name eShop. Otherwise, I'm going to have to change it, the name of one of the segments on the show. So,
Yeah.
what do you guys feel about the eShop as it exists now and what you would want from the future versions of it?
So more reactive, you just wanted to move faster, basically?
I mean, I don't know if
just
if he
smoother?
means like it moving faster or if like, like sometimes you'll go to like one page and it'll like react to what game you're looking at or something like that. I don't know. A lot of people were saying that like they wanted like some of the music to come back. Like
I mean,
I'd
bring
like
back the
that.
Wii
Yeah.
shop music. I mean,
yeah, like
that's the
that
real.
or some kind of jingle. Like the Wii U eShop had a lot of music that would play when you were going on it. It's just kind of a weird silence when you go on the Switch eShop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I swear I don't really spend a ton of time on the eShop, especially with this job. Like honestly, if I'm only on there to either redeem a code, which takes like 2 seconds, so I'm not really browsing, or like if I have a specific game, I'll just search for that specific game and then add it to my wish list. So I'm really looking at my wish list more than anything of like, oh, there's a sale. Let's see what's on sale on my wish list. But other than that, I really don't like manually browse the shop that much.
Yeah, it is actually the one shop that I do browse because it's like much easier to see like what just came out. Like show me the list of the most recent things that came out. Because Xbox and PlayStation kind of mix things up and they highlight, they point you towards things they want you to look at, but Switch you can literally just look at a list of what came out today. And
and it's
also
overwhelming.
yeah, it's overwhelming. But I also like to see what's on there. And then also they have the top 10 lists too, or the top lists most downloaded and most, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's much more straightforward than the other platforms. So I actually do look at that shop more than the other platforms, weirdly.
I tend to do it on the web, but yeah, like I don't know, like something about the actual eShop on the Switch just it kind of deters me. Like I do fire it up from time to time, and then like I'm like, oh yeah, let me see what's happening on the Switch eShop, and then it's about 3 minutes into it, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right.
So after that response, it started becoming a bunch of kind of repeated answers. So we're going to look at some of the other more unique responses that I got, and kind of just react to these, maybe in rapid fire. Maybe if you have more to say, we can go from there. Dwayne Tiamat at Too Many Ferrets on Twitter said, "Be comfortable for people with human-sized hands." Do you guys have problems with the Switch as it exists right now in terms of like the Joy-Cons?
I not as much as people. I mean, those little buttons are tiny,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rare cases where you have to play with just the Joy-Con sideways is just a nightmare for
Oh,
anyone that is not a child. But I will say I switched to the Hori pads,
Mm-hmm.
and like which are basically like a regular controller cut in half, like almost like an Xbox controller, and I can't go back now. Those are
Mhm.
just too perfect.
I need you to send me the link to that because I have a few third-party Pro controllers. Power A makes some really good ones, but you're saying these are like a replacement for the Joy-Cons?
Yeah, like they're
Oh,
you can find them at like GameStop and stuff. Like there's different colors, and like I have some red ones, but they do like different designs. But yeah, it's just replacement Joy-Cons. They're just thicker. Like literally, it feels like it has the same sort of like ergonomics of like an Xbox controller, basically, like bigger triggers and just buttons that fit your thumbs. And the only thing you're giving up is the HD rumble, which I'm fine with. And also it has a regular D-pad, so
Mm.
okay. Well,
it
I do prefer
makes
that.
yeah, it makes handheld play so much better, at least for me.
All right. Well, and it works on like if you just pulled out like say you were playing a game that requires you to use one half of like one of the Joy Cons.
Oh no.
Okay,
Just because the
that's
way it's shaped, it's not really like imagine holding half of an Xbox controller in one hand, and it just wouldn't. Yeah,
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, the only time I really feel like there's a problem with the way the Switch, I mean, aside from the triggers not being kind of like the God, what's the word for it? Like it's just like it's analog instead of digital, where it's like
No, you
there's
can't
not a
like depress
range.
them, right?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like it's yes or no, it's pressed. It's not like the Xbox triggers where it's like, oh, you're compressing it 70%. Um, and also like the joysticks aren't the best, and the D-pad is not good at all because it's not really a D-pad; it's just four buttons. Outside of that, I don't have a problem until you go into the single sideways Joy-Con. That's the only time that I really have a problem with the Switch Joy-Cons. But other than that, I'm using the Pro controller 90% of the time anyway.
oh
So
yeah.
I get that. I get Dwayne's complaint here. We'll go to the next one. Marco Voltage at M Voltage on Twitter said scalable fonts and in-game keybinds in every game. In other words, more control over my experience.
Yeah, I feel like games have gone. I feel like that's more of a game by game thing, right? Because I feel like remember when the Switch first came out, that was kind of a nightmare for a lot of games. Like, oh, this text is they didn't really
Yeah.
scale this up for this screen. I like to think that that's better now. Like 7 years in. But yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends on the game, of course, but that's always great, especially for accessibility reasons.
Yeah, especially if you're able to do it at a system level. I think you can do it right now in not virtual console, Switch Online. I think you can remap buttons. I think that's at a system level. I don't know if that applies to the entire Switch system though. I haven't really messed around with that too much.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think it does. But that is more key binding. Yeah, Nintendo could totally integrate that into just the settings of the system. But yeah, the text font that has to. I think that has to be game to game. That I think that's on the developer as opposed to the hardware.
Yeah, I think so too. Andrew at So After I Said says connecting to HDMI/TV without needing the Switch dock.
oh,
Now,
so like the Switch would just have an HDMI port.
I think that's what he's getting
Oh,
at.
interesting.
And at first I was like, that's unnecessary. And then I thought about all the times like I've traveled to my parents' house or I've traveled like to a hotel where I'm going to be there for a few days. And it's like, I'm going to bring the dock just so I can play up on the TV. And it's like, it would be kind of nice to just have a way to plug into even if it was just an adapter cable that you could like a USB-C on one side, HDMI on the other, and you could plug into the TV that way. And I don't know. I think there is something there.
Yeah, you'd have to get a pretty long cable to make it like comfortable. Or at the very least, maybe just make the dock smaller because there's still like those third party docks that are just like a little piece of plastic, right? It like
Yeah,
just goes
Yeah, I have
underneath,
one of
and that's
those.
about it.
I do need one of those, especially with the traveling and everything that I do. Like,
But yeah, I would just put an HDMI port on there, right? I mean, even the Steam Deck, which is a lot easier with that, only has like USB-C ports, so you can get like a little USB-C HDMI converter, and it works pretty flawlessly. But
Oh,
like, yeah, let's just put an HDMI port on there fully. Why not?
and kind of Justin Jones at Dev Puppy has kind of a different solution here, which his response was mini projector.
Okay.
like I thought he was gonna say because I just thought, excuse me, that what if the Switch could just cast? to
That
another
would be cool
display.
too.
Because it's already like a like the way you do it with phones. Like just have an option of like I'm just gonna cast it to whatever display is it picks up.
I actually like that a lot. Wow, I do like that a lot, Marcus. But yeah, mini projector. I think that's maybe the third best option out of the solutions we're presenting here.
I do like it in that it's like would be unexpected, and it just feels like the kind of thing Nintendo would do, if that makes sense, of like, yeah, this is a funky, weird thing that you didn't expect,
Yeah.
Just people sitting in front of their blank walls playing, projecting Zelda.
Well, I've always liked Microsoft patented this thing that it would project like behind your TV, like an extension of the game, which I always thought that was a cool idea. Like I have Hue lights set up that react to games that I play, and I do like that. But like I've always liked the idea of like, what if like the peripheral of like a game you're playing was just projected on behind your TV onto your wall? Like that, my Xbox dabbled with it, but they never did anything with it. But I think that would be
So it
really
would just
cool.
be like the same image, just behind you,
Just
so
extend
you're kind
it,
of
right, like beyond the TV, right? So it's like no gameplay would be happening on the projected part of behind your TV,
okay.
but it would just be sort of like displaying kind of on the walls and just setting the mood better, like, right, you know what I mean?
Is
Like
it kind of like an arcade border, like
yeah,
like
kind
like
of,
yeah,
but
okay.
like reactive to the game. Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Get on it, Nintendo.
That would be awesome. I mean, I just installed the LED strips behind my
Yeah.
TV and then thought it was interfering with the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities of the TV. So I actually ripped them off and then realized that the TV just needed a hard reset. So I did that and then reinstalled the lights, and now it's been working fine ever since. But
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
was
the
that was
lights
a
are
pain.
cool. That's a good sort of prototype of it, but I want it to like actually like project,
I
Yeah.
was gonna ask, like, are those lights like? Because I know people like those. I've always been kind of turned off by them. Do they add to the experience? I always thought they'd just be distracting, just to have like flashing RGB lights while I'm
Oh,
trying to play a game.
mine aren't flashing. Mine are a
Oh.
solid color that I designate what they are. So like if I'm playing Sonic, I make them blue. If I'm playing like Vampire Survivors, I make them red. And it's just like it's just kind of like you can set whatever it is.
Right, it's just like an ambiance thing,
Kyle's
right?
Yeah.
is like more of one that's like it reacts to what's on the screen and changes based on that. So he might be able to. Well, how does it work, Kyle?
I mean, I don't really know technically how it works.
Break down the engineering.
Yeah, right. It passes like all my consoles pass through this sort of dock, right? And then what it does is I think it looks at the color borders on the on whatever you're watching, and it projects those colors. So like I'll be playing like, I don't know, like let's say I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom or something, and I'm standing on the coast, and like the left side is like so like the left side of the screen is water, and the right side of the screen is like grass. The lights behind my TV on the left will be blue, and the lights behind the TV on the right will be green. Does that make sense? And it's like
Yeah.
it reacts in real time, and I love it. Like it's just about sort of mood, and it also sort of highlights the screen. Like it's not distracting because it is an extension of the image. It's just like it, but it's only color. So I quite like it. I think it is very
Okay.
cool.
I've always wanted to be sold on it because I've like in my mind I was like, is this just like the nerdier version of just putting lights under your car?
It's
It kind of is.
No, I mean it depends, right? I suppose, but like I think it's closer to this like VR, right? Like because the thing about VR is like it totally envelops your vision, right? So that's what's cool about VR is like you can totally be in this world, and it feels like you're inside of it. And doing these lights on the TV is sort of that on a smaller scale, because it like makes your whole room change color with the game if you have your lights off and stuff like that. So it just makes it more absorbing. So
Yeah,
I
it's much more
like
immersive.
it. Yes,
Okay.
immersive is the word I was looking for. But it is, so it's like if you're it's not really that, if you're just sort of playing with the lights on and your like family's around and you're chatting and stuff, it's like, maybe it's distracting. But if you're in that mood where it's like, I'm going all in, I'm going to play this for the next 2 hours, I'm turning all the lights on, I'm turning up the volume, I think it's like, I love it. I think it's an awesome way to play.
Okay. I'm sorry to get us off track.
No,
I was
no,
just
no.
wondering there, but-
I think it's cool. Yeah.
Unknown Entity 54 on Twitter says, bring Nintendo up to snuff in terms of online capabilities, which I think is another big one that
Yeah.
that people had.
I mean, that's been on the list since like they discovered the internet. I mean, that's like a legacy request.
What was it, 2004, that there was that quote from Satoru Iwata that was like, we don't think gamers want online games?
Yeah, then he straight up call it like a fad, pretty much.
I don't remember that. I just remember
Like,
that in an issue of Game Informer, it might have been issue 200 of Game Informer, there was a quote published by Satoru Iwata saying that like gamers don't want online games or something like that.
or like
Yeah.
our customers don't want that.
Well,
yeah,
they got burned by Satellaview. They were like, you know what? If this doesn't work, we're not gonna ever make an effort again. You know?
I mean, yeah, like just like this is the one thing where it's like I don't want Nintendo to get all Nintendo-y about it. Like just do what everyone else does.
Right,
Just
yes,
have it work at a functional level. I don't want to have like I think the last time there was like major headache. I remember trying to get into matches and like not only on a system level but on a game level too. Like I remember Splatoon 2.
Oh, Splatoon 2
It
was a nightmare.
such a nightmare trying to like I remember trying to get a session with friends and we're trying to do salmon run and stuff, and it took so long to by the time we started playing, we were almost like we had almost abandoned it. Like, I don't know, you want to just go play something else?
Yeah.
How much of a because none of us truly understood how it worked because we were like, oh, it can't be that hard. It's online, right? And then you're like, oh no, this is Nintendo, right?
I think Splatoon 3 was better in that regard, but yeah, I remember Splatoon 2. It was just like, why did I even try? Like,
like what did I expect?
Right.
I mean, but even like Mario Kart, it's just it's always like one or two more hoops than is necessary. It's like these problems have been solved for a long time. Like just do that. Like no one's asking you to do anything wild. Just do what's already out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mark Deschamps at Mark Dechamp said, multiple tabs. Quick resume on Xbox has me spoiled.
Oh,
I do use
interesting.
quick resume.
Yeah.
Good-
Quick resume is a very good feature, but
It's
sometimes
pretty nice.
games do have problems with that, I've noticed.
Some, but I'm also impressed that like I was actually on my Xbox the other day, and when I looked at my quick resume tab, it still had my game of Signalis, which I haven't touched in months, running in the background. Apparently,
It is crazy in that.
I was like, what?
I think I had like a Rock Band night with Ben Hansen, Leo Vader, Blake, and who else? Somebody else was there, and we were playing that, and it was like 3 months ago, and I looked at my quick resume tab, and Rock Band was still on there. I was just like, really? And of course, it probably would run like garbage if I tried to fire it up. I know a lot of games, if you fire it up, it has a problem with that because it was Alex Van Aken who joined us,
Okay.
and I knew there was a fifth, but yeah, I remember the quick resume. Sometimes I'll fire it up and it'll be like, this game normally runs at 60 frames per second. Getting it out of quick resume, it is like running at like 20 frames per second.
Right. With that, is that like an SSD thing? Is that why that's possible?
I think
don't
so,
know
but it's also like the processor is engineered around the SSD that Microsoft uses. So because I reviewed it, I reviewed the Xbox Series X and S, and it's like the processor was built with the SSD in mind, so it's like kind of like one streamlined process, something like that. I don't know. It's been a few years, but
okay. I was wondering like if this would be tied to the SSD request in general for the next console. So it's like, hey, if you guys are going to do that, maybe talk to Microsoft. Like, you guys are kind of cool now. Maybe you can pick their brain a bit. Like, hey, how do we do that?
yeah.
I didn't know there was a quick resume tab. I gotta go look at that.
Yeah,
thing.
there's
I had
an
no
option
idea.
where you can see all the games that you currently have sort of like suspended in quick resume.
Yeah, so you hit the home button
Okay.
and it brings up that side menu. There's a quick resume like drop down that you can
Yeah,
select.
because then you can
I'll look at
manually
that.
close the games. You're like, oh, I'm done with this. This doesn't need to be here anymore.
Well, it's also one of those things. It's like that quick resume, and then on PlayStation 5 they have the cards that will, like, in theory, show you how much longer you have on a section, right? Like, oh, this level takes most players another 20 minutes, right? Those
I
are
do
two
like that.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to say, those are two features, right? The PlayStation 1 and Quick Resume that I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to take advantage of both those. never really thought about them with the launch of the console. So like, quick resume is one that it's like I just focus on one game at a time. So like, in fact, I'm like the first thing I'm gonna do when I get on my Xbox later is like go to that and make sure everything is closed. Because like I don't want stuff running in the background to interfere with me playing whatever I'm playing.
Yeah, because
you know?
right now, if you're running a game, even if it doesn't have online capabilities, sometimes it will mess up the online capabilities of the Switch. Like I was trying to download an update to a game while I had a game kind of in the background. Like I was on the home menu
Oh right, yeah, you got
and
to
it was
close
like,
those. Yeah,
close your software if you want this to go faster. I'm like, this is a single player offline game. Why is this impacting it? And then I went into like, you know how like there's like the kind of like the Switch version of achievements, the missions that you do if you have Switch Online, where like you can get like the points, and then that allows you to like redeem for the icon
yeah.
components. It was taking forever to load, and it was like, maybe close your software. That'll probably improve performance. And I did that, and it did. And I was like, this is again a single player offline game.
Like,
Why
I'm
is this
playing Picross S. Why is this such a problem?
It's very strange. Nintendo is oddly behind in the online department, and also quick resume and like how that impacts the just having one game on in the background really screws up a lot of stuff on the Switch's operating system. So I get this complaint. Next up is David Bell at Tubotic Prime, and this was also a popular one. Within all reasonable engineering capabilities, no Joy-Con drift.
Yeah, well, I mean that's not. Yeah, I agree. Like that shouldn't even be like a request. You know, like that's one of those like, hey, this thing's not working the way you said it's supposed to work. The thing I bought should be working this way.
Not even with the
So,
Switch OLED, it still gets the drift.
I had to send off a Switch Lite once to fix drift.
Oh, that's even worse
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's built in.
Yeah.
You can't even change it out.
So that's not even like, I wouldn't even put that as like, oh, I hope the Switch has this, as like much as like Switch should have this already. Right.
Do you think they fixed it, or did they send you the same Switch Lite and just upload your data?
Oh no, they sent me my Switch back. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I was like, do you put like a mark on it so you know?
I think there was like a little scratch or something that I was, you know, I there was no doubt in my mind that it was my Switch that I got back.
Okay.
Um,
Have components that work properly.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they gave us a better kickstand with the OLED, right?
Yeah.
Because that original kickstand, if you looked at it the wrong way, it snapped in half.
Oh God! Talk about things that I also never use. I completely forgot the Switch had a kickstand. I had to think. I was like, wait, what?
Nick Lai at Asian Perk, who is also a Game Informer community member, he has a good one. He just sent a GIF of Twilight Princess.
Yeah. Launch with that. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and F-Zero.
No, actually, put that
all in the
on
box.
Switch. Put it on Switch and then make it all backwards compatible.
Yes,
we don't
we'll
have
take
to
that.
have this conversation every single episode of All Things Nintendo. Spike Spiegel says, bring back Virtual Console, which I'm split on that one because
Well,
I like owning the games, but I also like only paying one subscription cost and getting access to a ton of you. I talked about this in the past where I play more games than I probably would, like, because I don't have to buy them. Like when they add like this weird, like, oh, this game only released in Japan. It's like I probably wouldn't have dropped like $8 to buy this, but because it's included in my subscription, it's kind of like the Netflix effect, right? Where it's like, all right, I have the subscription anyway. People are talking about this movie. I might as well check it out. It's not going to cost me anything extra. That's how I feel about the Nintendo Switch Online. Yes, it is going to suck. It's going to suck when they shut down Switch Online and we suddenly have no access to any of those games that we've been playing. But at the same time, like, it does, I think, I mean, if I'm paying for online subscription anyway, it does save money in that way.
Yeah, and it doesn't. It's not like it takes the sting away if and when that happens. Of like, well, at least I didn't buy this game like piecemeal, and now they're taking it away. It's like I was paying for access to them, so I don't feel like I'm getting cheated out. If that makes sense, you know. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're part of the problem of like the digital only future because it's like it's just so convenient, and it's like honestly, I don't need to own Pulse Man. I was like, I could play it once and then be like, yeah, I'm never gonna play this again. And I'm also a person that very rarely replays games, so like keeping them around is not like super duper like maybe not appealing, but it's like when am I actually gonna fire this up again? Like realistically, if I'm being honest with myself. So like I had my fun with it. I tend to frame my sense of value around that. Like I got what I paid for. I don't need to hold on to this, but that's me.
Yeah, I just want both options, right? Like, I like the library. I'm playing Oracle of Seasons right now, having a good old time. But I just let me just also have the option if I want to buy them wholesale to keep on the hard drive forever. Like, let's do
Yeah,
that too.
because
Yeah,
Game Pass does that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, and they'll even give you discounts. Like, hey, this is leaving Game Pass. Maybe you should buy it at a discount.
Yeah, that's what I would want. Yeah, the one thing I liked about Virtual Console is it did make the library larger and full of more obscure stuff. So I do miss that.
That's fair. Yeah, I think there's definitely positives and negatives to both approaches, and I would, in a perfect world, they would give us the choice, right? Like, but I worry that like they would kind of phase things in and out of like Game Pass does, where it's like, all right, Ocarina of Time is leaving Switch Online, you can buy it now, and it's like, I don't want that.
Mhm.
That would be worse, especially if they're not selling it individually. It's like a Disney Vault situation
Oh,
of like, who knows when we'll see this again?
well,
once
hey, they
take
do
it
that
off.
already anyway with like Super Mario 3D All Stars, where it's like,
Oh,
why
that's true.
was
Yeah,
this delisted?
they just took down, or not just took down. But recently, it was a Pac-Man '99.
Yeah, I mean they're
Oh, is
taking.
that gone?
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, because and that was one of the like online exclusives of like like the way Tetris was. Like,
I mean,
hey, you
Mario
only play-
35 was taken down almost immediately. It was like a month
Yeah.
that it existed.
At least they gave a heads up with that. The Pac-Man one was more egregious because like we were just under the assumption this would be here forever as long as you were subscribed. But they just
Yikes.
arbitrarily were like, nah, this is gone. You're like, what? Okay.
The Nintendo Vault. This one's a weird one for me. Tony Cocking at Wild Tony Appears said Street Pass.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I miss Street Pass. I was a huge Street Pass guy. Man, I used to love bringing my 3DS to like E3s and stuff. And like the joy of opening your console and seeing like a line of people and just the satisfaction of watching them all give you a little puzzle thing.
Yeah.
I
no,
agree with you, but is the Switch portable enough and durable
Yes.
enough that you would be carrying it around with you? Like whenever I go
I
on a
do
trip,
already.
like
What are you talking
They
about?
made a light version just for that.
if I go to like a convention or something, I'm bringing my Switch, but I'm not bringing it with me to the convention hall. I'm leaving it in my hotel room.
Well, that's just because Street Pass isn't on there, Brian.
I
If you
love
put
Street
I mean,
Pass.
honestly, I
Here's-
would like to see the influx of people carrying their Switches around if they brought Street.
Here's the happy medium here. We get a device that we can bring around with us that allows us to connect with other people who have that device. Because I'm not going to carry
Yes.
my Switch around, even if there is Street Pass. And I loved
Really?
Street Pass.
I don't think it's that much of an ask. I take
Yeah, you
my
put it in,
Switch
like, a
with
little
me
backpack
to, like,
that
the
you probably-
doctor's office and shit all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
and
you know?
I usually bring a little backpack when I'm like at a PAX or something, just for things. And the Switch isn't heavy.
Yeah,
you know what?
it feels not durable enough to me.
What are you doing? What are you like
yeah.
rubbing up against? Or,
Yeah, put it in a little case. You're fine.
Yeah.
The thing that I loved even more than like E3 or like PAX or something like that was like getting Street Pass stuff like in the airport, because that felt a little more like ships passing in the night. Like who was that person? Where did I meet them? Like I loved that kind of. Bring back Street Pass. I
I
would
was
love
so
that.
excited when Reggie came to my town when I passed him in an E3.
That's so
It was
cool.
a really big moment for me.
Yeah, I had Miyamoto one time. That was pretty cool. Let's see. We only have a couple more here. We already talked about this a little bit. Trey Higgins says, "Fun menu songs like We." Yeah.
Yes.
With
Yeah.
it-
I can't
with
believe
you
those
there.
are not on Switch. It's embarrassing.
This is one that maybe only applies to you, but Andrew Brock says, "Parental controls that allow parents to set the earliest time that it can be played, not just the latest."
Ooh.
Oh, I don't really use parental controls. I've even tried to encourage my kid to play more violent and inappropriate games, and she's like, "Nah, I don't want to do that." No, that's interesting. I mean, parental controls are great. I actually, I like them mainly not even for like setting restrictions, but just tracking. It's like, what are they up to? What are they playing? How much are they playing?
Mhm.
But yeah, to add more options, that would be great. Yeah, why not? Absolutely.
And then Malik Rook at Orbs of Oddness said, I'm going to censor it here, "Have an effing messaging system. Seriously, how did they get it right in the Wii in 2006? Barely. and Wii U in 2012, and then axed the whole thing with the Switch. We've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but more support being voiced for having a messaging system.
I mean, bring back the God, the Wii U thing
Yeah,
where
what was
people were
that
drawing
called?
stuff. It just flew out of
Miiverse.
my head. Miiverse, there it
Yeah.
is.
That was actually the next one. Miiverse was the final suggestion that people had that I pulled for the sake of this episode. Miiverse is a big one.
Yeah, I really genuinely liked Miiverse, and I bet the reason that it got taken away is because Nintendo was really adamant about policing it.
Yeah.
And I bet that was a huge ask to have. They probably had a whole team of people just looking at posts and making sure they were appropriate and stuff like that.
Staring at these weird drawings for hours.
Yeah, I mean that was the big thing. I remember Ben Hansen when the Wii U first came out. His big thing was just pushing the boundary to see how far could he push it, right? Because he wasn't really posting. There's obviously inappropriate stuff you can write, like terrible drawings and using profanity and stuff like that. But Ben, for a while, would just make posts that were just weird and confusing and on the border of is this okay? And just to see if they would stick around. He just posted in the Batman Arkham
novels.
City Miiverse of a picture of a sad guy going I miss my dad, and just seeing will that stay up? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, the Miiverse was awesome. I really liked seeing all the drawings and stuff.
Yeah, it's I didn't use it very much, but yeah, it was just so delightful to fire up the Wii U and you just get that barrage of just man, that's a cool link that person spent time drawing. It's just it had a purity to it that basically no other online space really has. And I was genuinely shocked that it didn't transfer to Switch. I bet everything. I was yeah, they're gonna keep doing that because it's just because the Switch is the successor to the Wii U in so many different ways. I was yeah, they're going to bring that over, right? And really? Not at all?
Yeah, that's the one thing Wii U got right. You should bring that over,
right?
It has been interesting that certain games, because there's no Miiverse on Switch, they kind of came up with their own internal Miiverse. Mario Maker 2 had a comment system that you could leave, and Splatoon 3, you could actually keep drawing the way you did on Miiverse because they realized that's a huge part of the Inkopolis Plaza or whatever the new versions of that were, where it's you just walk around, see people that are kind of in your circle, kind of not, kind of just
I love I'm not even a big Splatoon player generally, but I loved just walking around the lobby and seeing what people were drawing because you had the gamut of just oh my, that's amazing. How do they do that on the Switch touch screen? I don't even know how you would draw something like that. And then you just had the stuff that was absolutely terrible and stupid that you're was fun in its own way.
Yeah, at least you had the courage to post this.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So bring back Miiverse. Absolutely.
So we're not going to do a definitive ranking on this episode, but I did want to get your sense for what the most likely changes in your mind will be for the next Nintendo console. So I don't know if you just want to give me one thing that you think Nintendo is absolutely going to change for the next console?
Not preserve? Okay.
Change, improve, whatever. What do you think is the biggest one? Let's go with you, Kyle.
Okay. I mean, I feel like the lame and easy answer is it's going to run better. Right? It's just going to be a more technically proficient system. I feel like that's an easy layup, but the thing that I will sort of throw out there as a more dangerous one is the controller doesn't split into two pieces anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that was kind of that's been a divisive part. No pun intended there.
Right.
It's been a divisive part of the Switch's controller, so I could see that changing.
I think it'll still be, you have handheld, you have docked mode. I think you can even still separate the controller, but I just don't think it's going to be a 3-piece system, two controllers and a screen. I think it's going to be one controller and a screen somehow.
Yeah. It may as well, because even you don't get the HD Rumble in the same nuance when you play undocked.
Yeah.
Pretty much just the whole thing shakes like it's about to explode.
You're right.
So,
Marcus, what about you?
Now that I said it earlier, I've kind of been mulling on it. When I said that maybe the next Switch can just let you cast to the TV. Maybe they'll actually do that. Maybe
I
they'll
love that idea.
they'll double down on like the portability and how versatile it is. Of like, it's not only that you can just put it in a dock, but maybe there's other ways you can, play your games on different displays. Like they just sort of expand on that. And honestly, casting has been around for so long. Like on paper, you think that really wouldn't be a huge thing to put in, because phones and stuff have done that forever. So you just have to do that.
So, but it would probably a proprietary thing, though, right? Like it's not like you just have a compatible TV. Like you have something that plugs into the HDMI that the Switch in your hand connects to, right?
I assume, I don't know how like the tech behind it, but phones is just like built into the phone, right? And then you just cast it on any TV that that works with, which is basically all TVs now.
I feel like Nintendo doesn't want to mess around with someone else's technology, right? They want it to be all belong within their ecosystem, and I think that version of casting still has a lot of lag, and that's just a big no for Nintendo.
Yeah. For example,
and that's. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say that I just got a new TV, and it's one of like those really smart like Samsung TVs. And when I plugged in my Xbox Series S, it was like, this is an Xbox Series S. We can even let you control it with your TV controller if you want. So you can have like seamless like entertainment with just one controller. And I was like, cool. I plugged in the PS5 and it was like, this is a PlayStation 5. We don't have the same options, but it'll still say PlayStation 5 and it'll automatically label the input. Then I plugged in my Switch and it was like, we have no idea what this is.
What have you put into me?
Yeah.
And I actually had to like label it Nintendo Switch. And like whenever I go to it, I have to be like, yes, this is a game that I am playing.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, guys. I didn't say it would be good.
Yeah.
I just said they would do it.
Yeah,
it's like Nintendo does the internet too, and that's not good. They'll take a stab at it.
I feel like when it comes internet, yes, they are things that they fall short on, but something like that, where it's like the player interacting with the game on the TV, I feel like they're going to take that incredibly seriously. They're not going to half-ass that, right? But I think it's good. I think it's smart, Marcus, especially considering that the Wii U kind of was a version of that, right? Where you were wirelessly connecting to your TV. So there's something there. I think you might be onto something for sure.
My answer is going to be a boring one, but I'm just going to say backward compatibility. I think that is something that they need to do. Me and
Marcus put our necks out on the line, and you go with backwards compatibility.
Left us.
Fine. We're going to have fun menu songs like on the Wii.
All right.
Next, he'll be saying the next Switch will have Fortnite.
There will be a Mario Kart game. But yeah, I think that is a decent look at what kind of the community is feeling regarding whatever the Switch's successor will end up being, and also kind of still talking a little bit about the newsworthiness of that report that came out earlier this week. Thank you both for joining me for this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much to everyone for listening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, throw All Things Nintendo a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button. If you want to get any questions or comments in, you can get in touch with me at allthingsnintendo@GameInformer.com or hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. I am also on Threads and Blue Sky, both at Brian P. Shea. And you can always join the Game Informer community Discord, which is a perk for subscribing to our Twitch channel, even just for 1 month. Marcus, where can people find you online?
I am on Twitter and Blue Sky at MarcusStewart7.
And Kyle, how about you?
Yeah, Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, TikTok. I'm in all the places.
Anywhere that you are is the place to be. That is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We will see you next time.